Alright, welcome everyone to the first Dramatica Users Group meeting for 2019, January. We're going to do Crazy Rich Asians, which is a romantic comedy, very funny. Everybody loved last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
First off, we shall identify the through lines. That's where we're starting. So the first one is the overall story through line. What is Crazy Rich Asians about besides Crazy Rich Asians? Unless you think that's the answer.
Well, it depends on which definition of crazy you use, and that could have a bearing on how you define the through lines.
Does anybody have any ideas? If somebody were to ask you, oh, you saw Crazy Rich Asians, what was it about?
Okay, homeboy Scion brings home a banana with a dubious reputation on his arm.
Wow.
The word banana was used at one point.
Oh yeah, no, several times.
Oh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
what
It
was
was
it?
very
Side
much
white
on
on the outside.
Is there like a regular answer? Like a...
Yeah. So.
You said, what is it about? You didn't say like okay.
If you want to say
Sorry.
something, say something.
Yeah.
I was going to say acceptance, because that's what
Okay.
it's about, but it's not, I guess we're not describing that story that way.
Yeah, you want to be like, you wouldn't tell somebody, oh, unless you're really close with that person.
Unless
and
you're
say,
very-
oh, it's about acceptance. You'd probably be, it's about,
Status.
well, less
Okay.
subject matter, but more like, what's the conflict?
Mm.
What's everybody worried about? What's the imbalance?
Rich boy's family doesn't like his proposed girlfriend.
Yeah, who's gonna marry into the family?
Okay.
Or homegrown Scion brings home banana.
How do you remember?
I like
Did you say Cylon? What?
Scion.
Yeah,
Cylon.
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 Of course, they're Cylons. They're always Cylons.
That would have made the movie
They're always
better.
Oh, I
Cylons.
totally get it now.
Crazy Rich Galactica.
So
I
rich
thought
air
Michelle's
brings
eyes
home,
were red.
You know,
rich air brings home girlfriend?
Working class girlfriend.
Thank you. Okay. Working class
Really
girlfriend.
gotta get the Chinese heritage in there
Yeah.
to make it.
Okay. Which would be?
Maybe
There's
well,
Chinese and then there's Chinese American. Chinese.
Oh, rich Chinese hair?
And I'm not sure working class really works as a.
She's a professor.
She's professor. It's all about her mother being working class.
Oh yeah, because she's a doctor,
well,
right?
you could
She
go
comes
with Julian and go unacceptable.
Yeah, unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Dubious background.
Yeah, so just make it Chinese American.
She's not
Homeboy
enough.
Scion
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's a big difference, and that's the point.
brings
Chinese American girlfriend. Okay, and that everybody's,
Okay.
that's what's creating all the conflict, right? So
Yes.
That's great, okay.
on his arm.
The main character, who is our viewpoint into the story, who is that?
Rachel.
Chew.
Of the peanut chews.
Plastic.
Yeah,
That guy was the worst. Okay, that one's pretty obvious. And who is the influence character who challenges Rachel to deal with her personal
Ken Jeong.
problems? Ken Jeong? Okay.
Eleanor Sung Young.
Eleanor.
Eleanor's the mother-in-law, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not
To
yet.
be mother-in-law.
Oh, right.
Or potential, right? Potential mother-in-law. Who, everybody's good with that, huh?
Yes.
Oh, that was
Mhm.
rad. Okay. That's getting early. It's gonna be at 8:30.
Who do we think it might be?
Oh, I don't know. There's conversations I
someone
had
would
with other
say,
people. And...
The boifriend. Henry.
Yeah. Okay, great.
That's not the
So
boyfriend. There's no. There's
she's the
really
one that
no
challenges
Yeah, no,
Rachel.
Perfect. Thematic.
Nobody has any other. That's great.
The relationship.
Mhm.
And their relationship is
Judge and adjudged.
okay. One person at a time. Judged as judged.
No, judge dash adjudged.
Can you speak English?
First it's
Well, it's the
Cylon.
judge and the one who is judged.
That's not a relationship.
Yes, it is.
I wouldn't argue with an attorney on that one.
Which is cool, but wouldn't that be up here maybe? Or-
No.
Yeah. So,
Well-
it's the family thing. It's the mother-in-law.
It's the
and
potential mother. It's the
mother-in-law and
potential
daughter.
mother-in-law
Daughter-in-law.
and yeah, the potential
It's
family. The potential.
It's
family.
P mill / P dill.
Is it a
It's a
man?
what?
Your mother-in-law to be daughter?
PMIL / PDIL.
potential daughter slash potential mother-in-law.
Pimbled and piddled.
Okay. Excellent. All right, anybody have anything else to add on to that? No?
Well, George, one other thing. Is there maybe 2 stories in this though? Is there maybe a sub-story?
I think so.
I
Well,
think
there's
between-
definitely a sub-story.
Yeah, I think between the
cousin.
Nick's sister.
Is Astrid the
Astrid-
cousin?
Astrid and Michael.
Yeah, Astrid and Michael.
Cousin.
Okay, I'll put
But
that
that's
here.
that's definitely a B story because there's not really. I mean, it's just there's not really an arc.
And that's not overall story stuff?
Well, it's super.
It's go ahead.
I think it is a really good example of the theme of overall story,
Yeah.
but it may have enough detail in it to make it also at least have domains in this as a sub-story.
Yeah.
With you.
Okay. Potential sub-story. Astrid, and what was his name?
Michael.
Michael.
Just call him Crazy Abs. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, every
Great. Thanks.
They kind of,
except for one, every guy in this movie has crazy abs.
except for Nick.
All right. Excellent.
So
It's like,
maybe
how many
the two
shirtless
that-
Asian guys can we see? I mean,
Character dynamics, which are all about Rachel, right? So let's start with the resolve. Is Rachel changed or steadfast by the end of the story? Changed or steadfast? And why?
She's steadfast.
Okay.
And why?
What's the evidence of that?
She is basically herself through the whole thing, and then chaos kind of just happens around, like, her for who she is.
Okay, but like, what's her point of view? How does it stay? So steadfast character, they hold on to their point of view, their resolve, like how they approach problems. How does she? What's the evidence of that? If there isn't.
well, you look at the first scene. First scene, she's very confidently in charge of her classroom. She has no doubts about her self-worth. You know, she has no doubts that she's enough. And of course that's the part of her that's being challenged throughout the course of the story, that her being enough. And ultimately she sticks to her guns and says, I am enough, I am worthy, I judge myself to be enough.
Another
and she
way-
stays that.
Well, yes.
Another way to put that is, in the first scene, she's
She wins
playing
in
to win.
poker.
And the last scene.
Well, she's playing to win, and in the last scene, she's playing to win.
Right.
Right, but she's playing a much more difficult game to win. So she's grown into.
What?
But you have that
Deeper
device of the
resolve.
poker and the
Just because you don't
mahjong.
understand
Book.
mahjong.
The book.
Nobody understands.
No, I
And she
Okay,
continues to
okay, so
put-
one, I don't think she's playing to win. I think she's not, so she made the point about the other guy was playing not to lose.
No, he was playing to not to lose, right?
Right,
She
all
doesn't-
right.
She doesn't play that way.
And she, at the end, did not play not to lose, but she gave up Nick.
Mm.
No,
she
She
did.
seems to.
I think she,
Mom's playing not to lose.
she forces mom into a position where she can only lose, and she
Yeah,
knows.
mom's playing not to lose, and she's
No.
playing to win.
She seems to put family first throughout the story, right? She has a good relationship with her mom. She's very excited when her mom comes to see her. She makes sure to, not go off with not take the boyfriend away from his family. So like even if you don't look at it through the lens of manipulating, she seems to hold that point of view the whole time.
Well, the problem is also that her point of view is, again, that we sort of said, we changed it a little bit, but well, they look down on her because of where she comes from, and the last thing she does is leave with her mother, right? So like she is embracing where she's from. She's embracing the thing that's caused all the problems, which is totally steadfast.
Yep,
Kind of
I agree with that.
On a lighter note, it's pretty clear from when they're picking out dresses, mother and daughter, that she really would say yes if Nick asked her, and at the end she said yes. And she just flirted in the middle with saying no to Nick.
But she
On
wouldn't
the
have
marriage.
she wouldn't have said yes if it wasn't the right the ring signifying that,
At the end,
That
she
the
would have
family
said yes at
said.
the very beginning,
yes, right, yep.
How do you know that?
There you go.
because she said, you
Before
might come
she
back with
knew.
a souvenir and held up the ring.
So you're
She
you're
wants the
with
marriage.
steadfast, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm
Oh,
with
okay,
that.
we
for some
all
reason I
agree.
thought
I
you-
said, no,
oh,
she
so
just
everybody agrees, okay.
played in the middle with saying, no.
Yeah, I think all those are really good. I like the playing to win to the growing to playing to win for sure. And you're saying she's family first and then family first at the end.
Yeah, because if he had just, think about if he hadn't brought the right ring,
Uh-huh.
signifying that the other character changed, right, then she wouldn't accept it.
Okay, so.
Well, I think, yeah, and because, you know, part of the reason she's steadfast is the impact or influence character is change. And the change, the ring is evidence of her change.
Right.
And so that was her holding on to her guns that compelled
Eleanor.
that paradigm shift in Eleanor.
And how did Eleanor change?
This is symbolized by the ring.
I mean, this,
Well,
yeah. I
well,
was
Eleanor
thinking that,
is treating her the way Eleanor's treating Rachel the way that the way that Eleanor got treated poorly previously. It's like a learned behavior.
Are they almost like alike?
Yeah.
Oh, there's
That's-
they had
that's
the
how
you and I
they're-
are just a live
that's how they're
conversation
wired.
on
but
this.
did you also notice
Yeah.
they wore the same dress to the wedding? They're just different versions of it.
Oh,
I didn't
no, I
notice
didn't
that.
notice that.
That's
The
what I was like,
wedding?
oh, influence character. That's
Yeah,
really funny.
completely. But yeah, I mean, Eleanor was her.
I'm not sure. Same.
Yeah, they're
Well,
both.
yeah,
the
what's
same color.
same?
They're both
It's similar, it was very
from the
both
similar.
wrong
from
side of
outside.
the track.
Right.
Proverbial.
Married in, right?
Not to be racist with the railroad.
So,
But yeah, the
Sorry.
did you want
He
to
knows.
add something or?
well, I was just gonna point out the ring is symbolic because the actual all we see of her is just a look.
Mm-hmm.
They're standing out over the balcony.
Yeah,
Nick and
the
her
ring is
mother.
proof.
Yeah, right, and then there's a look, and so
Well, it's not just a look, she held up her hand to show that ring was not on her hand.
Well, and the ring also originally was not the family ring.
Yes.
Right.
So that's
It became.
because
For the
it
same
is
reason.
yeah, and it is now the new family ring. So now
Right.
we have the new legacy being
House
passed
is
on.
emerald, like
Yeah.
everything is that same color. Okay, excellent. All right, cool. So, just for fun. Oh, there's my theme song. The main
Wow.
character growth, is she holding out for something to start or holding out for something to stop? Would you have a guess? Does anybody have one way or the other?
Yeah, I think she's holding out to start.
And what would be proof of that?
Oh, well, maybe not. Never mind. Not worth considering.
Okay. Anybody
It
else?
was in the novel.
Because that one is hard to tell sometimes because it could be one or the other because they're right on the line. Does anybody have? If nobody has a preference, then we can just.
Stop,
Okay, and why would you say stop?
Yeah.
stop pouting. Stop. Yeah.
Like
So
she's
with the
steadfast.
steadfast character, it's
Waiting.
what is she waiting to happen
So
around?
it's like she's waiting for the mother-in-law to stop treating her poorly.
Okay.
or she's
But I
waiting
feel
for
like
acceptance.
she was like, you're still treating me poorly, I'm leaving. So in a way, she's waiting for them to start treating her well, if at all.
Which
So see, that's where you
Which
can
I think
see
is,
it's like hard
So
to tell one
confusing,
way or the
yeah.
other.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well then we'll just say they're both for now. Usually Brian
I
can.
don't know. I usually I think I still like start button. But
You like start
really yeah.
Yeah, I'm
my
like-
argument's terrible.
51 stars, 49 stops. That's my.
what's it again? She's waiting for something to start to happen around her?
Or stop.
So it's
Stop.
either is she waiting for them to stop treating her poorly, or is she waiting for them to start treating her?
And it's always about a them, not a her.
On a steadfast.
It
Steadfast.
certainly
Ah,
seems like she
steadfast.
puts herself in a position to be embraced, which would seem to be start to me, rather than
Yeah.
she's not like.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
She's not like.
the negativity doesn't really start to happen until at least 30 minutes into the probably 40 minutes into the movie.
And
So
then
it's not
she's-
like it's about a negative that she has to hold
Right.
out for. It's more about you're the groom
Yeah.
and his
Here I
wife
am,
completely embraced.
Love me.
There's people are so she's inviting acceptance.
Well,
Seems
the
the consequence
first,
comes way late too.
is this may be putting too much on one scene, but when they first meet, she hugs the mom.
Right away.
And the mom does not hug her back, so she's
Right.
like she's waiting for the.
Mom doesn't.
Oh, that's a
There
good
it is.
That's really good, yeah.
Great argument.
Start.
Started it.
Total start.
Nice,
Slight
right?
start,
Sure.
but
Excellent.
maybe
Right.
not. Okay.
So then going on to the next one, main character approach. For Rachel, with her own personal problems, does she prefer to take action first, or does she prefer to change herself first and adapt to her environment? So is she a doer, or does she prefer a beer approach?
She's. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
You sure?
Yes.
She seems to be a doer because like when she's on the massage table, like she gets up off the massage table and like runs out,
Okay.
and that seems very doer-ish because a beer would just change how they feel and deal with the massage.
Laugh with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I agree with that, except for you saying that Beard like changing herself. So if she took the steps to get another dress or change her look, is that doing or is that being? That's doing,
It's
right?
doing. It's doing.
Right,
in the
it's not just
story.
because changing herself is mental, not a doer step.
It's also
It's a
she
step.
doesn't take that step.
Yeah.
Aquafina takes that step for her. Aquafina makes her change her dress.
Oh, which one's Aquafina?
The
Short blonde.
Side
Asian
chick.
Ellen.
One who talks like she's from the Bronx.
Actually, she looks more like Miley Cyrus. Oh, sorry.
But she is.
But no, it's Pink Lynn.
Pink Lynn.
Lynn.
Pink Lynn.
Okay.
Yeah. She's one
Oh,
of
is that the actress name?
No,
No, it's
her actor's name is Aquafina.
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 So then are you saying she's a beer because someone else is
No.
telling her to do?
No, I'm saying
It's just an
the
example.
dress getting changed is not necessarily even part of her through line.
Because even though
That's
the
what
dress
Is
changed, I think she didn't expect it to have a real effect. Like when she saw the mom, she wasn't like surprised at being treated poorly still. I feel like if she thought that was her changing in order to be accepted, she would have been a lot more devastated by the rude comment.
You know they put the fish in her bed too, so then she also
That's
goes
right.
and talks to her boyfriend and
She
you know,
buries the
I was gonna
fish.
say berries.
and buries the fish.
She buries the fish.
No, well, the fish is kind of bad because she says, I don't want anybody to know that I'm reacting to it. All right,
Right.
you know, don't call the security, I don't want them to know that I'm having a reaction or anything.
Yeah,
Which is changing herself, she's absorbing the fish.
but I think that's the only moment. When that happened, I was like, oh, that's the only moment of potential being, but also, it's not even that clear because it's kind of doing, because what she actually is doing is stopping the other woman from calling security, which is
Okay.
potentially doing.
Potentially, yeah. But
That's
if
why,
if we're gonna include running away, then I also would say the running away at the detective report being revealed is a doing thing.
That's
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that's
Yeah.
good.
Oh, yeah.
That's great.
Through the whole wedding thing.
Yeah.
All
When you
right.
see her in
You know
her
what,
own,
too?
when you see her in her own element, she's very much a doer.
You know who's a
When
doer?
she- When she's in New York, she's very much a doer.
and when she goes and talks to the princess at the wedding
Oh,
is
yes.
very much a doing
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
What did she say? Oh yeah,
She
yeah.
talks to her about her economics paper.
Microeconomic loans
That's
to women.
That's cool.
That's why I'm saying when she's in her own element, she's very much a doer. But the story that she's thrust into, she's just kind of a fish out of water.
I know, and they even highlight how bad a boyfriend Nick is
You like
for
that,
her,
Jim?
because he's like, oh, she'll be hiding in the back.
I'm sorry, say it again, Mike.
So they highlight how poor match she is with Nick, because Nick says clearly she's gonna be hiding in the back, and then that sets up their whole breakup scene. Did I watch a different movie?
No, you're right.
No, you're right.
But I don't think that's
No,
the breakup scene.
I'm actually very much kidding. He says, what I'm really saying is, they highlight the doing aspect of it, because he says she's gonna be being and hiding in the back, when in fact she's not.
She's doing
They
it.
really wanna make it clear
That's
that
awesome.
she's not adapting. So they hang a lantern on it.
And the groom says you have a fighter.
Right.
Right.
Oh, brilliant.
With Casablanca moment.
Yeah, you know.
Great.
Okay. So you worked lampshading into a.
Yeah.
All right.
If all the $1 billion weddings in all the world.
And that would be the tagline for this whole thing
Yeah.
today, yeah.
So we have steadfast, start, doer. So main character problem solving style. Is she linear or holistic in the way that she approaches problems?
I feel like if she was holistic, she'd know he was rich from the beginning. Like, how do you not?
That was a bit odd, but yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
But he was being cheap.
Yeah, but that's part that you know and this is not predicting any elements, but that's part of the overall manipulation of the world that he
Yeah.
comes from. I don't think that's on her. I really don't think that's on her.
I thought she was holistic because she did a lot of things that I just saw no point to.
Like what?
So, like, oh man, I had a list of them too. Someone else chip in and I'll come back right away with it. I just had some on my tip of my
Well, you
tongue.
think
Doesn't
about
she
it,
kind of
yeah.
talk about the balance being on or off the whole time?
Does
Like,
she
oh,
talk
the
about
balance
that?
is off. Oh, the balance is on. I don't know. I feel like she talks about that a lot.
When? Oh, I don't remember that.
When?
Just like
Yeah.
when she senses something is off, she just starts going off about it. It's not like this is happening in an order and go like.
Oh, I seriously don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Do you have like
Just
a
like a scene
specific?
example. Is it from like
Just let's see. Oh, I can't think of one now.
Lots of pressure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one example. I don't know if this is a good one, but when she's doing the poker game in her first scene,
Okay.
she is, she goes all. She has nothing in her hands. She's got a bad hand, and she does an all-in thing because she's trying. That's part of the balance thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's shifting the balance to where it's like, whoa, I'm gonna fold even though I have two pair and you got nothing. So that.
Or is that linear because she's, doing it
No,
to cause him to fail in front of the class?
No, because right, exactly. Bluff is
Is assessing the
Depends on
whole
the
situation.
Right.
It depends on the context.
and the way she talks about that. It's game theory or something that she
Game
talks
theory.
about.
Game
Game theory,
That's her thing.
economics.
I'm leaning toward holistic too, but I'm not sure I have.
So another place of
Okay.
holistic was having the mahjong thing. There was no reason, as far in the way that I saw the mahjong parlor thing play out, for her to have that discussion with Eleanor. She was leaving Nick. She was not making a play to get Nick. She had already refused Nick. She already had her plane flight. There was no reason to have that other than to have the relationship adjusted.
No, it was that scene was the prisoner's dilemma.
Yes, exactly.
And she was forcing Eleanor into a position where she was going to lose unless she made the worst possible decision, which was accepting Nick's girlfriend as his new wife.
No.
Okay. I mean, that's, it's like,
Well,
let me reword
because
that.
she had already said no to Nick,
Let's look at the driver.
right.
all right? She had already was leaving Nick.
Johnny said no.
So what additional thing was being hung on Eleanor by having this mahjong game? Nothing. Anything that was in place was already in place before Eleanor came in, as far as the relationship between Nick and Eleanor.
I think we should skip this.
Does anybody have any arguments for linear? Because everybody.
Yeah, I think
says
she's
for
linear.
holistic.
I think
Okay.
she's
Well,
linear.
no, yeah, I think
she doesn't understand that her boyfriend's rich. She gets on the plane and she's able to put their pieces together only then, which is very, like, I need all the evidence before I
Exactly.
can take the next step. When she gets in the massage table, when she finds the fish, she buries it. It's like, if they want me to react, then I have
yeah.
to react. I won't let them. Like that struck me as very linear.
You mean this whole place converts into a bed? You know what I mean? Like on the plane.
Oh,
like
right.
everything's going through her senses. It's
Mhm.
before she can really figure it out. It's not like I feel like if this was like a TV show where it was a holistic character that she would be figuring out stuff. She'd be putting something together.
So what's the problem? What's the problem? What's her personal problem that we see her stop at until she gets more evidence? if she's
Well,
living
she
there.
doesn't even know what's happened in
Cause
her
and
family
effect.
system either. Like she's also been completely tricked by her mom, right?
Okay, but that's
That's her personal shit.
right. But that's not a linear.
one of
If you don't know
Okay.
you have a problem, you don't.
All right,
The
here's,
problem
here's,
is
I have one.
she's
for
not
you.
really much of
Yeah.
she's not a protagonist, right? So she's not like pursuing much, right?
Right. She won't marry Nick until she has the mother's approval. Right?
Right.
She gets the ring.
Yep.
And that is approval.
Yep. And then she does it
And then she marries him.
cause and effect.
Cause and
right?
effect.
And it seems like now that I'm saying this, the whole
No,
conflict
because-
for
Wait,
her.
wait, wait, let her finish, let her finish.
The whole conflict for her is that things are happening out of order. She's like, why didn't I know this before when you should have told me? In terms of him being rich, or like when she got there, why didn't you tell me about this? Or
Let's
I
let
think
them off.
part of it.
Alright, so maybe 50-50
I think
right
we should
now?
skip it and let the benchmark
Wow.
decide or something.
Alright.
Yeah,
Okay.
unique ability.
Nobody over here? Everybody's, no? John? Thanks for coming.
When you
Alright, so now we did the main character. Very exciting main character. And now the plot dynamics, which are strictly with the overall story, for the most part. The story driver are the major plot points of the film. And they're either all going to be actions that force decisions, or decisions that force actions. And that's super important, because it's not just, oh, things happen, and oh, they make choices, but like one actually forces the other. So,
Wait, can I ask a question? Can I stop real quick?
you can do whatever you want, yes.
When does she say no to Nick?
It's
When
it's
he-
referred
it's
to
off
after.
screen.
It's
off
off
No, no.
screen.
Well, yes, it is off
It's off
screen.
screen.
He gives her. He
She tells
proposes with a ring,
The original ring.
the original
Cut
ring.
to
Oh yeah, then the mom,
Okay.
she
Cut
tells
to a
them, she
market.
said, she tells the mom, she said no.
I
And then
said,
she tells the mom, so she said.
He like proposes to
turned
her,
him
and
down.
then it cuts, and then all of a sudden like, oh, does her mom have
That's
a
the worst
gambling?
cut.
and then she
I know.
That's what I thought was gonna happen.
Yeah,
This is
she,
a really strange way she's gonna be brought down.
she tells her she was
Oh, wait,
proposed to,
finally
and
gets
then
the
she
crazy
says,
part.
she says, don't worry, I turned him down.
Right.
yeah, so she tells the mom. That's how.
Yeah,
it
see,
works.
what
Okay,
starts
so
the
I
story,
don't
what
think-
ends the story.
I think if she,
I'm bringing her to,
Would you like to go to Asia?
deciding to bring her to Asia, the
Okay.
wedding, and yes.
And then
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
the decision.
What's the yes?
Yes.
the decision.
Yeah.
Oh,
so-
in the airplane is what you're saying?
I do, or I
Yes.
will.
We'll be
Okay.
married.
Okay, so let's do this action, right?
so did you say it was her action or?
No, she, no,
He's
the
saying
no,
decision,
let's do
so
this
this
decision.
is yes to proposal, right? And the first one
By the way,
is,
I would say yes if someone gave me that ring.
Say, well,
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
say
You
yes
would've
to go
said
to
yes to the
Singapore.
first ring.
You know,
the decision to bring her,
man,
right?
woman,
Right.
whatever.
Say, let's go east.
Okay,
Go to the wedding.
not stay in the family house, but in the hotel, right?
That's another decision.
Is that another one, or is that kind of part of this jumbly thing?
I guess the decision to bring her is the bigger issue, right?
Okay.
That kicks off the story, because
What's
they wouldn't
the-
stay in a
No, it's
hotel.
her decision to go, not his decision. It's her decision.
Yeah, I think that's,
Well, here's the thing, no, but the
Ten.
whole,
Ten.
that whole first act is, from the objective story viewpoint at least, is, oh, Nick's bringing this girl, you know, and all the energy is the girl he had decided to bring this girl home
Right.
with them.
that's what,
What's all, you know,
That's what kicks us off.
and what's everybody's deliberating about that, and, you know, and, I mean, while there's still,
Their deliberation doesn't matter.
well, well, fine, but it just, but
It's
it's,
just saying it kicks it off.
but there's no.
yeah, it's just, there's all this energy on that deliberation of, oh, Nick decided to bring this girl home to the wedding.
He chose her.
Okay.
Maybe that's
Yeah, he chose her.
I guess that's the real
Well,
first. That's actually the real first thing.
What's
is
the
that
midpoint then?
he chose her.
This
or
one
she-
here?
she
Midpoint?
accepted.
Yeah, that's what I think. Does anybody have any ideas for any of the other act turns? Midpoint?
Oh.
I mean, the mom decides she's unacceptable. Maybe.
Well, that was
Well-
initially right at the very start. She needs to stay in her own room. I've only got a room for you.
She decides
That's
to bok,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
to fight back.
Right,
Go
that's
to the
right.
wedding.
Oh,
Yeah.
what was that?
Yeah, but that's
Yeah.
that's like the
Yeah.
last.
That's probably 3 and 4.
No, that's like the.
No, that's the beginning of the third act,
Yeah,
or
that's
the final
beginning,
act.
Yeah.
Is what, which one? It's
Yeah,
she
Bach-
decides.
She goes to the wedding to fight back.
Right, she actually says to Pete Lynn, I'm gonna sit this, I think it's better to sit this out. And then Pete Lynn convinces her to go to the wedding.
Oh, okay.
And
And then they had their pretty women scene. Pretty women
That
scene.
was all
This is
third.
pretty close to pretty
This
much.
stuff?
Yeah.
Or
You
do you
mean
the
the
midpoint?
scene that's in every single romantic comedy?
What's the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in this one twice.
what's the thing with the whole dossier?
Of course, that's the whole movie. Every trope you can make.
That is after that,
It's after that.
because it's after the
Because
wedding,
after the wedding, right?
at the wedding celebration, that,
The wedding's here, it's not here?
Never mind.
Well, the crisis point is the dossier.
Okay.
That's near the end.
That's near the end.
See
Yeah.
that?
Okay.
I think
So
that's
no
why I
idea
thought it was
what
dry.
happened.
Oh,
It
you
was
just
actually-
wait. One of them is going to a
Because
bachelorette party.
The dossier
That's a decision?
Isn't it? She
is an action.
says certain things
Forced
about it.
by her going to the wedding, right?
No, they don't talk
Isn't that
about
the first thing
what
she does when
forces
she gets
it
to
at all.
Asia? She
It just
decides.
happens.
But would it happen if she didn't go to the
Well,
wedding?
maybe the decision to
We
burn out
don't
a
know,
fish
because
and not let them
Well-
see her.
Oh, that's for the couch. The couch.
Oh.
Yeah, but
couch
it's
thing,
not,
so-
but what about the decision of,
the couples on the couch and they're deciding whether. What do they end up? He ends up asking her to spend the day with him after they go. Get
Well,
done.
I think grandma's
It's like that-
decision to think that she has an auspicious nose and to kind of accept her and still complain about Eleanor losing all of her touch. And that sets Eleanor off towards, okay, now we're gonna go use the investigator. Which
we
is
don't.
all-
We have
the-
no
the-
idea
the-
why
the-
she uses.
the-
We have no
all the-
idea why she gets the
the
investigator.
conflict of the middle
Set
act?
up.
Yeah, yeah.
The conflict of the
We
middle
don't.
act is set off
Wait,
by
everybody's talking over each other.
by the ex-girlfriend and her friends to sabotage the relationship and sabotage her feelings.
And that's
about
what's
him.
that's what's a big deal that she accepts going to the bachelorette party because she's, you know.
Right.
she's-
Right, but I
That's-
think
that's the
what
first one,
propels
that's the
that
first
act is the decision on the part of the family and friends to sabotage, the saboteurs.
But we never
So we
Okay.
don't see that on screen.
Hold on.
No, we don't, but but it's still,
But we do see the decision of her to go to the parties, go to, right?
But why but overall, just so we don't get lost in the weeds, everybody's for decision, right? Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, mostly, but like, the thing is the dossier showing up is not set up.
Okay.
They talk about a PI in the Act 1, and that's it. And then suddenly, boom, here's a dossier. So that's very much an action that leads to her running away and saying no to Nick, right?
No.
But she runs away.
But what's the direct cause?
She hides in Peeklin's room.
Right.
And then the mom says, Nick brought me here. And then he proposes and she says no. So that's even like proposal no is action
Just as
decision.
easily said yes, though. With the same.
Yeah, I don't know if that necessarily caused it.
Right,
It's
okay.
like one
She'd
more.
be like, no, fuck you, now I'm marrying your son, Richard.
And also the sabotage is not set up. We don't see any decision to sabotage.
well, the
Just
result,
like-
the results of the
We
decision.
don't see the decision.
So that's just an
Well,
action.
except,
So you decide to.
But you know what, it may be in the
Accept
book,
the sabotage,
and then
and
they
that's
they
a
just
decision.
didn't put it in the book.
That
I
if she,
don't
you
if
see hints of it through the social media
if she hadn't
stuff.
accepted going to the party, you wouldn't have the ability to sabotage her. So like that's, I think you're just missing we're just missing the midpoint, which probably tells us something about the story.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. That's
Yeah.
right.
And I
And the
think that-
amount of discussion
by
that's
the
going
way,
on here
Yeah.
The midpoint.
says a lot.
The midpoint could also be.
It's just a lack of clarity.
There's a big question, which is Nick going to or not going to propose?
Okay.
And he eventually sort of says like, I'm going to propose,
Mm-hmm.
right? So is that potentially the midpoint decision, and we just know there's a deliberation going on because he tells his mother, I've got to decide this, I've got to figure this out for myself,
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
right? He says this in Act 2,
That
I've got to
does-
figure this out for myself,
That forces her to
Yeah, it's a
get
bunch
the
of
private PI.
and then he
Yep.
proposes, at the midpoint, or he says, I'm going to propose.
I'm
which
going to
is-
propose.
He
Which is,
decides, at the
he
bachelor
decides-
party,
he decides-
that he will propose.
But there's a bunch of, I think this is our point, right? There's a bunch of little decisions that are getting made in
Yeah,
the middle,
like it.
all
Right.
around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I'm good.
Oh, excellent. All right, story limit.
Just out of quick curiosity, did anybody feel like maybe that the Astrid Mike filled in at the midpoint area for showing some kind of decisions?
I think that's a,
That-
oh,
Where subplot kind of filled in that where it wasn't real strong in the main plot?
Yeah, it could be.
Think about it.
Yeah, sometimes that's why you have a subplot every now and then, is to punch up, the drama, in spots where you kind of need it.
I don't know that that's a decision story though, because he, like,
She finds.
She finds,
she
yeah.
finds it, and also like when he just bolts out of the car and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's an
It's
action.
like, oh, would you stay with me?
No, that was
like,
an option. Okay, so time lock or option lock
No,
for the
drive
story
that
limit for
story.
this
That was-
narrative, for the main one. Does everything get brought to the climax because of time running out or because of options or option?
Options.
Well, there's no time lock.
Right? And the options would be just in the general
Well, we
sense.
haven't
don't have to
defined
spend
what
forever.
Acceptance.
Have we exactly defined the story goal, which
So how many different ways can we keep the family together or not tear it apart?
Keep her out,
Keep
yeah.
her out.
or if you define, if you define the goal from the protagonist's point of view of gaining acceptance from the family, and gaining acceptance in just the whole community, bit by bit, people are accepting her, and people are, turning around to think more highly of her, and Eleanor is the big, is the main prize. But like she loses the grandmother. I mean, the grandmother accepts her, and then she loses the grandmother.
Seriously loses.
Yeah.
There may be no inheritance.
So it's all the options.
She just wants-
So is it the options I think are the people, the family and the friend,
Yeah.
all the key people that kind of need to embrace her.
Brilliant.
But that's the option,
Yeah.
right?
The options.
Whether or not
Her
she's
grandma's
gonna be
the
accepted.
Yeah.
True, and who at the option lock is like looking in each room to try to find
Right.
the path to
Yeah,
success in
exactly.
your goal,
This person accept me, is that person
Yeah,
accept me,
right.
is that,
Right.
you know.
and eventually you reach critical mass for either
Success,
success or
good, let's
failure.
go.
Okay, story outcome, success or failure,
Success,
which is signified by
happiness.
The I do.
Big fireworks.
Everyone's rich at the end.
everybody's infinity
Crazy
pool.
and crazy.
And story judgment
And still
is
Good.
good. She's very, very happy.
50 carat emerald.
The only person who had any angst we didn't see,
Yes.
that was Alma.
She stepped out of the picture. Oh, I don't know.
The-
Oh, I see what you're saying.
The dad.
Oh, the
No, the grandmother.
We never
No.
saw the dad. That was weird. That the dad never showed up.
Right.
Maybe movie two?
It's a
That
matriarch.
was a big.
All right.
That was a big sort of
Yeah.
dangling proposition. Right?
So the ones we were questionable about were the problem-solving style. That's
Yeah,
mainly
that's
the
like-
growth, but I think everybody likes to start. So. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
So now.
What was the mark of success that she was accepted by the family?
The ring.
Well,
I think
Yeah.
this is.
no, I mean, everyone likes her at the end. She is totally embraced by everybody
And the party.
at that party.
Not the grandmother.
Everyone except for the grandmother, and everyone was there. So
Yeah, but the grandmother doesn't usually go to those things.
Right.
It doesn't-
Grandma.
Grandmother said, you're.
They say that explicitly.
I know, I know they do.
Yeah, at the wedding.
But grandmother herself says, you leave me now, you get nothing, young man. You will never come back.
and
That's
yet
what
they can-
grandmother says.
And yet they can
And
show
she does not look like the type who's gonna eat her words.
Except the son, who
The
we didn't
scion.
see.
The scion.
No, that's the grandson.
All
The grand scion.
right. So now we have the through lines. Now we're gonna go do all the thematic stuff. And what you do is you take the 4 through lines that we had before, the overall story, the main character, the influence character, and the relationship story, and you assign them to different domains. And the overall story and relationship story are always in conflict, which means they'll be diagonally across. and the main character and influence character are always in conflict, so always diagonally across. So, does anybody have any thoughts first before? Anything that they particularly like?
Well, it seems like the main character's central issue is just her status in life. You know,
Okay.
the fact that she's a lower class, individual, although.
It's just Chinese American versus lower class.
Right. Well, right. It's just.
Isn't her status more about the overall story?
Well, it's a good question. Is that her personal?
Well,
Good question.
they share a status though.
Ignorant.
One second. So do you, so I think what you're saying is you're making.
But also it's just, and this, and I could be talked out of it, but it does seem that Eleanor is very squarely in the fixed attitude domain.
So what Sandy's referring to is the mind domain,
Mhm.
because it's better to use old terminology. So what you're saying, when you're arguing for status, you're saying that is her place in the universe. Is
Yeah,
that-
her past creeps up on, past, future, her future's always, obviously her future relationship status is always a big concern.
Right.
Whether she dwells on it or not, but her past creeps up on her, her experiences in the present, certainly is a signpost and how things are going.
Which are all parts of universe,
Mhm.
right? So then, because they're diagonally opposed, that means Eleanor, the influence character, would be in mind, which you were saying that she's very set in her
Seems to
ways.
be.
Okay.
And again, I could be convinced otherwise, but that's my
Did
initial
you-
impression.
Did you have any other stuff, or,
Well,
because then I'll take other options.
I like putting the OS in manipulation because it's a romantic comedy, and I also kind of like the start thing. But I can't. I'm having a hard time illustrating the relationship through line and activity.
Okay.
Is it just like Pretty Woman?
Well, it was Pretty Woman.
Well, where they're like
It's not
Well,
really romantic.
they're doing a bunch of activities together,
True.
like going to parties and bachelor
Yeah,
parties
but
and-
Rachel and Eleanor are not doing that. But they're.
Right.
I mean, you could say that they're. I mean, attaining, doing, learning, understanding. I mean,
well, but they are. They're making dumplings
Whole thing
together.
about prejudice.
okay.
They're,
As far as
they're going to events together. They have to go to a wedding.
well, yeah, but with everybody else. So that's. I'll defer
Okay.
to others.
So do you have any other,
I guess so.
I'm assuming this is what you feel.
That's what I have, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Do you have anything to add?
I just agree. I agree. I'm not
Okay.
sure if I can-
And also, when you look at the overall cast of characters,
Uh-huh.
there is so much manipulation going on amongst everybody. Including the gay friend who is, or is he a cousin? I wasn't
He's
quite
a
sure.
cousin.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure
All
the
of them.
relationship. He seems to be the fixer of the family or something like that. And
The problem with Ollie isn't, like in the wedding, isn't that he's manipulative. He does, that's how he solves the problem, but the problem is actually that the cousin is humping his girlfriend on the dance floor.
Mhm.
So that's a physics problem, isn't it?
Okay.
And then
Okay.
the
No. I don't think that's a physics problem. I think that
It's-
that's
well, It's the mother. It's a perception problem.
It's a social problem. We can't have that happen at this event. So we
Yeah,
have to get
he's
this
not
out.
having trouble humping her. That's true, the physics.
that's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah, he's not having a problem.
The problem is the mother. The manner the manner of thinking.
Uh-huh.
No. Yeah, it's just it does not fit the social.
Okay.
But isn't that
So
mentality.
this is one. So then, John, you had a different take.
But wouldn't that be what we feel, what we think?
What would be-
No, go ahead, go
What
ahead,
we
go ahead.
believe is a Chinese American from the wrong side of the tracks has no business being with. It's a prejudicial status thing, I think.
For
Is
the
the
overall
equity-
story.
The overall equity.
Oh, okay.
His mind.
So everybody's dealing with prejudice, or a fixed prejudice about her.
About the wedding, the marriage, the engagement, whatever you want to call it.
And then, so that would put the relationship story in universe, how do you see that playing out?
That's where the status issue comes into play.
But everyone's.
But when you think, look,
There,
and I'm gonna help make your argument for you.
Thank you.
You and I are just like conversation on the stairs. She says, I was not good enough for this family, but I joined the family anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I had to give up my status as a future lawyer, okay, future, past,
Mhm.
That's the family first.
right. Yeah. So that's something they share, is that status of not being good enough for this family.
But if they share status, then they're universe and mind, not physics and psychology, because those are processes.
So then if you like this, so then because she's a doer, that would put her in here, Rachel. So how do you see the stuff that she's doing creating issues for her?
I think it's more about the stuff she's learning. Or has trouble learning. She doesn't know anything about his family, his past. She doesn't know anything about her past.
Is
Her
that like
family.
a constant conflict?
But she's not going on an investigation. She's not like actively learning things. Is she? She's not like
Yep.
going
She's temporarily adopting a lifestyle is the way I saw it.
right.
Yeah.
That should be a stop here, right?
Which I have.
No.
Of course,
Yeah, and I don't. Besides their family, I don't know. When they go to Ken Jeong's house, where's the prejudice there?
And it's not like they're not going to be prejudiced towards other people necessarily. Like, how is the prejudice gone at the end of the film? Like, it's maybe not directed at her anymore. But do you think all of a sudden they're just like no longer going to be crazy
They
rich and
no longer have a problem with the Chinese American, her, specifically to this story, that's all it's about. Becoming part of this family.
But I think they no longer have a problem with her. We have a proof for that, for her
That's-
individually. But I
That's
don't.
all the story's about, is it? It's
Yeah,
not
but
about.
I don't know what she's
She
doing.
doesn't know what dress to wear.
That's
I,
universe, though.
no, I know, I'm
But that's
just,
a great argument for.
right.
well, she goes there. That's
She's
a
a fish out of
doing
water.
thing.
I don't even know she's a doer.
Yeah, a main character is somebody who has trouble actually the things they're doing is getting them in trouble or they're not doing it right and they have to
So,
do
like,
it differently.
Not successfully burying the fish.
Yeah, she had trouble doing that.
The-
Hugging the mother.
Did she have a hard time?
Well, but she didn't like screw
Yeah,
up
there's
the
a
hug.
conflict that arises
Well,
from
no-
her hugging her
Yeah,
mother.
well, no, there's
Her
no
mother-
physical-
her
There's no
mother-in-law
specific way
made
how
mother-
to-
A
It's going
physical,
to-
a physical
Well,
main problem means there's actually trouble wrapping your arms around them and hugging them.
Or she does, or there's a specific type of hug she needs to do in order to get the mom, and she can't
Yeah.
do the right hug.
But that's not.
But that's
But
not
you're
what
gonna,
we're
you're gonna trip back to the
So-
relationship,
Right, I was like,
through line too, so.
Yeah.
Does anybody have?
So what's the inequity
Another one?
of the story?
Messed up thinking.
So
That's the.
Who's
nobody
the
has any
protagonist?
villains, right?
Well,
So when
it's
you have
weak. I
a
mean,
story called Crazy Rich Asians, that pretty much signifies dysfunctional family. which is
No,
what
the
the
crazy
crazy
part
Could be
anyway.
universe because
Crazy
they're
rich.
crazy rich.
Crazy describes
Rich.
It's an adverb for
Well,
rich.
rich is the
It's not-
situation.
It all depends on how you read it.
Crazy
It's also
is
very
the.
ableist title.
somewhere.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
double entendre, of
Yeah.
course.
You went to
But
eat,
Oxford,
drink, shoot,
so they have an
leave.
option, comma, if it was crazy, comma, rich.
Right, yeah.
So-
No, it's still a double entendre, like every good
But
title
in
is.
Right.
in a romantic comedy, the whole comedy part is coming out from all the dysfunctional family stuff, which is going to the new money house and dealing with all that stuff. Everybody trying to manipulate and scheme to get him not to marry her. We're gonna get you laid, all that stuff.
Even I'm just thinking, but even, I was initially seeing the bachelor parties as physics, because they're just so over the top, but the conflict of them is the two guys don't want to be represented by a party on a boat. They leave because the party itself makes them uncomfortable, not that the party is problematic. The party has trouble getting partied.
There's actually a deleted scene where they fly off in a helicopter, like a medvac helicopter, just to get out of the party.
They show the helicopter.
It's
Dot
referenced.
Island.
Oh, but they actually
Yeah.
shot the whole interior, and
Really?
he wakes up in a helicopter.
Wow.
The other thing is when you have the main character and universe and the overall story, that's the usual setup for this start dynamic that you feel, and especially in a romantic comedy, it's very often the start. It's a lot lighter. There's not a lot of heaviness, weight coming from what you would have in a stop story. You know, like
Well, it's because
A Room with a View is a stop story. It's very like drama heavy. It's like, holy crap, this is really heavy. This is very light, like it's enjoyable. That's why you have that start dynamic here.
So help me see what you think the root of the inequity is in the overalls.
Well, can we do that?
Can we do
the
it with the
concerns
problem?
and stuff, so we don't skip ahead?
Okay, but
It'll
how
come
does
up.
how does it relate to the doing? Okay.
Well, okay, the whole, all the problematic stuff happens the moment when that other Asian girl sitting on the other side of the diner spots them, takes a picture, and then the social media just lights on fire. Everyone who's connected to this guy, this family, those friends, I mean, that's all so psychology right there. And creating the whole, you know, who is this girl? Oh, let's look her up. And so within minutes, everyone knows everything about this girl, and she's just a lowly economics professor.
But if it
in
wasn't
NYU.
rooted in a prejudicial belief system, it wouldn't be problematic.
Alright.
I think
I
it's
would-
more
But
psychology
is-
than
is
mine,
the-
though, I think.
Is the focus in the story on the prejudice,
Yes.
or is it on the dysfunction that
For
comes
the
out?
mom, it's the prejudice, that's the focus.
Yeah, the mom is more where the
Everybody
prejudice
is
is.
prejudiced.
I mean, yeah,
I
the
mean,
grandmother
yeah.
is.
And they come
Well,
around.
here's the
They're
thing,
not.
but the grandmother is not even that prejudiced about the fact that she's Chinese American. She is not against the girl until they find out that that she's a bastard child. So that's a different equation than the prejudice thing. Or than the prejudice against who,
But it's still
Exactly.
prejudice.
It's still a prejudice though.
It's still prejudice.
Not everybody is
What
prejudiced.
her
I-
prejudice was, right?
Honest, I
The guy who's getting
would
married is
attribute
not
that to
prejudiced,
psychology.
His fiance is not prejudiced,
But they-
Astrid is not prejudiced.
They asked, no, but
You will not fit into the family dynamic as a psychology problem. It wasn't a prejudice, it's we can't be associated with this. You won't fit in with the family.
I think it's
And-
like. Oh, sorry.
Can I just back one thing to show you where there's not prejudice everywhere? Is the first time we meet their family is the montage,
That's- yeah.
and they show like this guy's a director and he's nuts. This guy's a like total dick finance guy. This woman hides he goes and purchases stuff and then hides it poorly around her house. Like that is they are showing us weird, wacky psychology. They're not showing us prejudice at that point.
No, I think
Right.
the thing that's throwing you off, Johnny, is the opening scene too, because the opening scene makes it seem like we're going to be watching a film about prejudice because it's, white people that won't let an Asian person into a hotel.
that is the root of it. But that speaks to your point about
But that's
her issue.
another reason why she's obviously the impact character, because she
Right.
has the
Oh,
opening
that's a
scene
great
and you forget
influence
about
character.
that.
Yeah.
Can you say it again, Johnny? What'd you say?
It's just that opening scene
Influence.
is evidence of this influence character,
And
because
yeah.
she's being prejudiced.
Right, it's hers.
yeah,
That's
Mhm.
her
that's
issue.
true.
Well,
Yeah.
that's cool.
That's good.
And I like this. I know was weak, but I think all the making the dumplings, going to the wedding, playing the game at the end. I mean, there's definitely.
Well, if the son in any way represents the mother at all,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
it works, right?
Yes.
Because then you have.
But this, whenever you have a romantic comedy, I'm telling you, like 9 times out of 10, it's all the problems are in this dysfunctional
It's not
psychology.
really romantic comedy because the
Yeah.
influence character in them is not the romantic.
But I think it is if you're an Asian American watching this film, they're laughing, right?
Yeah, there's a certain amount of romance in it.
It's not classic.
No, but there's some love in it. At least that's what I saw. I'm a happy person. So.
Yeah, but what's the romance of it's really between the mother and the
Right.
and
Yeah.
the girlfriend.
He's just the
That's still
He's-
important to
he's-
romantic love.
he's
though.
just a handsome prince.
It's love.
Yeah,
It's
your
Fairy
mother's
tale.
I
love.
don't know if it's romantic love, but it is love. It's emotional.
It's part of marriage.
But I don't know if it's
All right, so now the concerns.
Cinderella, the
Which
princess.
we don't have the computer hookup, so those of you who have computers can use it. Those of you following at home, I've got it all memorized, so I can do this all. I don't even do down to the elements now. So,
Wow.
Me too. Jealous of my madness. Okay, so maybe I'll leave this up. And what it is for the viewers at home, the next step down, this is the genre, that's what I was saying, like the romantic comedy genre is kind of this setup. The next step down is the plot, so this will be like what everybody's focused on, where they hope to resolve things or where they're bringing conflict into the story. And the way it works is if you choose, these are divided into 4, so if you choose one corner, then you'll end up choosing the same corner in each through line, and that keeps a consistency of thematic issues and stuff that you're dealing with. So I will leave this open. If you're going to argue one, try and argue all 4, because it's really easy just to argue one completely out of context. I'm fully open to anybody throwing out something. Or would you like me to start with a certain domain? No? Okay.
I guess I'll throw out conceiving an idea for the overall story.
Okay.
Because it's like no one can conceive the idea of
Bless you.
Nick being with a girl like Rachel. He has to be with some important woman from a major company, because there's going to be this dynasty, and then they're going through the entire story to eventually conceive the idea that it's okay to have her there.
Okay, that would put her in present.
Right.
That would be her overriding concern.
Yeah, and that was going to be my initial lobbying thing, was her in present, because she's not concerned about her future, even though there's this lingering question of marriage. She's not thinking about it. And the mom brings it up in the beginning. She's like, we haven't even talked about it.
Right. Okay.
It's not that. It always seems to be like, hey, the wedding is sort of today. I'm thinking about not going, and that's right now. I'm having trouble at the bachelorette party. That's right now.
Okay.
Acceptance. So I was going to even argue for her for the present. So I feel like this works really well for that.
Right now. Okay.
And the present is like the fish out of water thing, where she's like, when I was first trying to figure this out, I was like, okay, maybe it's is it the rich guy in universe, or is it the poor girl in universe? Which doesn't fit, but it's the same idea of like, there's this fish out of water present problem.
Right. So that would put the influence character Eleanor, the mother-in-law, in conscious.
Which is,
How does that feel?
which is her like contemplating
What she thinks.
this girl's not good enough for my.
Oh yeah, completely. And if you look at the issues underneath, it's basically just a description of Eleanor.
Well, appraisal, reappraisal.
You have
Investigation.
You have investigation,
Investigation.
you have doubt, you have appraisal. I don't know if there's a whole lot of reappraisal, although maybe she'd like some from grandma, but I mean,
Isn't that
pretty
the
much
end though?
describes her. Yeah, but beyond that. But yeah, if you're ever trying to identify where a problem is, it's always helps. That's what I do default now, is just look at the ones underneath, because it's easier to be like, oh, I got all 4. Okay. So then that would mean their relationship is in learning. Where do you see that, if at all?
Well, they're definitely getting to know each other. They're finding out who each other is. She's learning about what the mother's really all about, and the mother's.
I mean, she learns how to do the dumplings.
Yeah.
She learned. And they're
the fingers in the water.
right. And and it's not just with the mother, but there's all the proxy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of proxies to the mother.
And the son being the biggest one, because he's like,
But I think there's a little bleed over in her interactions with the son, because he represents that
the
thinking
family,
that's not, we don't drink out of that, that's something we clean with. He's not as obviously impactful as that, but I think there are some relationship things that carry over into that, because there's not a whole lot of.
So you're saying he has fixed attitude issues?
No, I just think he stands in as a proxy for the light passive version of what her influence is, as opposed to like the active.
I think too their relationship, like I always think of learning as not sort of what they're learning, but problems with learning. And so when she, the way she learns that she has made a gaffe is she hugs the mom and doesn't get a hug back.
Oh, that one's great.
Right?
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
that's where she learns. She picks up the bowl and gets told, no, don't do that. So that's where I see the learning.
And she
That
gets
one's
lost
great.
in the house, which would be another one. She
Oh,
can't-
that one's
she's-
great
I'm
too.
learning
I'm
where
sorry,
things-
what was that one?
Right.
She's lost now. She's like learning where things are at in the house.
True.
Like,
But then that scene becomes about understanding. Big time understanding there, but that's the sign.
But
Which
still,
I'm looking
yeah.
at the signpost, yeah.
That's a great. That's really cool. Actually, there's a lot more than I thought there was. And then the game at the end is learning like who's the better player.
Right.
What's up?
Learning all
What's
the
up?
Nash equilibrium. Oh, they cut that scene out.
Okay, so does anybody have any other counter arguments to that? Do they see? Does that feel like a pretty strong argument? It feels like that's where the source of conflict is coming from. Excellent.
In the relationship, well, and again, the thematics underneath that, you got prerequisite preconditions.
Yeah, right.
I-
Like all the
Yeah.
steps you have to take, who you have to make happy, how you go about doing things, and then kind of measuring up, the analysis stuff. It's like all of it's really. If anything, I think the film's like really strong in the thematic area,
Oh, yeah.
which is why to my mind it seems a little boring in areas
Mm.
because I prefer plot. Okay. and like plot. Okay, so then, since we have all that, then we can go down to now this is where I skip past, because of my weakness in that spot, I skip past the issue part and go right to the elements. But
Can I give an argument?
you can give an argument for sure.
So how about permission for either the issue or the counterpoint?
Okay, so underneath conceiving an idea, we have permission, we have need, we have expediency, and we have deficiency.
So for permit, I really like permission because it's like she doesn't have permission to be in this family.
Okay, that one's
And
really
she-
strong.
And she's also very deficient. You know,
Mhm.
she's not
Yeah.
adequate to be the one in the family.
Right?
Mhm.
The other two, the first, in terms of expediency, I don't see that as much, and then I don't see need as much because
Well, she needs to be accepted, or she needs to be Chinese.
Well, it's not only that, but
Okay.
but
But-
and you look at the overall
but-
though,
I think
there's
it's better for permission, actually.
Yeah.
there is this
So
like
as a
perceived
pair,
need.
you like permission deficiency,
I love it.
because they always work as
Yep.
a pair together as opposed to need
It's like
expediency.
you're not good enough and you don't have my permission.
Okay.
And I actually don't know if this works with that, but for the main character, I really like work and attempt.
Okay, so she has work, attempt, which is one pair, and then the other pair is attraction and repulsion. Right? Okay.
Because I feel like
Yes.
the whole sense of I just don't see attraction and repulsion very much
Okay.
for her.
She's not having trouble attracting people.
No,
She's not really repulsing people.
Well,
It doesn't
No,
seem like a
I
major
think they
source-
like her or don't like her, but I don't think the transition. I think of attraction and repulsion as to having to do with the transitions. Like, I want the cake, but I've got to walk through the swamp to get there. So like, the repulsion is walking through the swamp.
okay.
Whereas,
I still think that's a maybe though, but
okay, but anyway, when I see work and attempt, it's like she's in this situation, and the whole scene in the middle where she's talking with Peek Lin, where it's, I don't know if I should go to the wedding.
Okay.
Felt very much like attempt to me.
Oh.
Wait, can you say it?
Or are you saying you think I was going for work?
Yeah.
Okay, but okay, well maybe it's work.
Because it's
but,
not
wait, can you
something.
explain?
But she doesn't know that she can pull it off. That's why she doesn't want to go, which is why I'm putting it in an attempt.
Can you guys explain what you're doing right now? Because You're on some next level shit. Can you?
No, I don't think it's too.
No, I'm just
No.
saying for everybody.
No.
Because you were arguing that she's talking to her girlfriend,
Right,
and she's like, I don't know if I can go, right?
correct. And her friend is arguing you can go, you need to figure it out.
Yeah, you're like, you can do it. Like, she doesn't know if she can do it.
Okay, so maybe that,
Whereas attempt is more like, doing, I cannot do it, or
We
the
don't get
issues there is
another great example.
trying to do something you can't do.
So here's an example of work
Examples
then.
of work in itself.
Huh?
Would help me at least would be to have what are examples of problems of work and problems of time or issues. You guys are debating them, but we don't know.
Sure. Oh, I got
Sorry,
you.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
So, you have a job that you're good at,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
That's your work. Can I do my work or can I not do my work?
But what's a problem with it? Like, how's it a problem again? Like how?
Can you do your work? Can you fill out your TPS reports?
Okay. And if I can't, then I've.
Then you failed.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, attempt is like, I'm gonna write a screenplay. And now I'm attempting something that I have no idea whether or not I can do it.
Just called you.
My number is.
Yeah, so like I was gonna say, like
Okay.
attempt would be like the 5'2" kid at the new high school is like, I'm gonna go out for the basketball team.
Oh, I did.
You know, is he gonna make it or not?
Right. And then.
He's an athlete.
Got it.
And that's why I liked your attract repulsion thing as part of the transition, because it's about the doing of it. Am I drawn towards it or am I repulsed from it
Mhm.
in relation to whether or not I can do it or I'm trying something I've never tried before. So I don't know if it's so much about she's not trying something she's never done before.
Well, isn't her work the game theory?
Yes,
And then
totally.
her attempt is I'm gonna try family.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So every time she's attempting family, yeah, she has a problem.
Okay, so
So,
we like.
so then how do you pick it? Then is that the issue or the counterpoint? Because this is always.
Oh, okay. So this is what I do,
Yep.
especially since I don't have my computer, and this is how I do it on my brain. She's the steadfast character, right?
Yeah.
And mom is the changed character.
Right.
So the steadfast character always shares the focus and direction as the overall story.
Right.
The changed character, nobody uses subdivision. Changed character shares the problem and solution with the overall story. So the way you can start doing that is you know for sure she's steadfast, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So then you just look, you've already identified two really strong pairs, and you just look which ones have the shared elements underneath. And which ones sound better for her focus and direction, because she's the steadfast. Because she will share the same focus and direction as the overall story, you will find the same two elements under one of these two that you find under those two. Likewise, it's easier if you think of Eleanor, because she's the changed character.
Mm-hmm.
What is she changing from? Problem and solution, because she shares the same exact problem and solution as the overall story.
So you do it by
Oh,
matching the OS to the change character.
Because that's the whole way
Yeah.
the story form works.
Yeah.
And that's why there is a main character and influence character, because they share those two opposite viewpoints.
Okay, but you also just answered why you skipped that step because it's easier because the model's twisted at that level. So
Yes.
skip it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Wait,
But-
so you match the OS to what?
I do to the main character because usually that's the clearest one. Or it depends. So 'cause she's the steadfast, sometimes it's hard to see focus and direction because it's like, whereas the problem and solution's really super obvious, especially in this film. There is a clear change, and so her change also usually is what makes it so that the overall story ends in success. It doesn't have to be tied theoretically, but quite often is. So because you had two really strong ones, it's just, so under work you have what? You have certainty, potentiality,
So
induction.
before you do that, though, just as a challenge.
Yeah, of course.
Is it possible for you to just knowing work and attempt in this story to go, well, she's having more problems with attempting than her work, so it would be attempt as the issue?
Before I looked underneath?
Yeah, just to guess
No.
and see. Can we try?
No. I mean, you could. I'm just saying, I thought you were asking.
But in this case, she's not having trouble with game theory. She's having trouble with attempting to be in a family. So
Okay.
So I'm just gonna guess attempt, and then let's see if it's under there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
attempt has inaction, protection,
Evaluation.
evaluation, and reevaluation?
Which I don't have on my current model. So
Oh, what?
well, I have work on mine, but
Oh.
the way I did it.
Oh, but attempt is, where does it go? Isn't it, inaction is up here?
It's in the right bottom.
Yes, inaction is on top, evaluation is
Oh.
top right, inaction is top left.
Someone's wondering if the main character just flipped.
Is this the
Evaluation.
next layer
Yeah,
down that we're
it's
doing now?
And this is the very bottom, so
Oh,
this is like the
why-
end.
This is why it doesn't work that way. Okay, cool.
Protection. Okay, so that means the kind of meat that she's dealing with throughout the whole story for her personally is elements of inaction, protection, evaluation, and reevaluation, if her issue is trying to do something that she's never done before.
Hmm.
And where, well, and then here's the
It
other,
doesn't fit, does it?
yeah.
Doesn't feel like it.
Well, but then the other ones are, if it's work, then it's induction, deduction, certainty, and potentiality.
Yeah, so for that one, I'll just put it up here. You have certainty,
Okay, like that.
potentiality,
Because you just.
induction,
I just don't see it. I just don't see it in there.
Oh, and
deduction.
I mean, I have to twist the definition around in my head to make it fit.
got
So
it.
funny, because the only way I know these two is because something you said like 15 years ago. So it's funny that you said.
I didn't say it then.
Yeah, what is it?
What did you said? Induction.
Something very profound, and I knew it would last.
I drew it. I have the drawing in my notebook from like 98 or 99.
Yeah.
And you said induction is taking this and doing this, and deduction is taking this and doing this.
Right.
And I was like, oh, click. And that's
Oh.
been in my head
And for those who are just listening, induction is going from narrow to broad.
The way
Oh,
I,
And
thank you.
deduction
That's right.
is going from broad
They
to
might-
narrow.
literally the way
With
that
my
I think of
hands.
induction is the kids on the island in Lord of the Flies need to act like the British society. So they need to
Oh, that's cool.
they need to do that. So that almost maps into this perfectly,
Well,
which
that's-
is the Chinese American needs to work with the culture of China. Would be so.
Oh, I love
Okay.
that. So, well, and then if we're doing math here for a second, so induction, you use a ladder as a metaphor. So if I can get on the first rung of the ladder, then I see if I can get on the,
think
nth,
that's-
the nth rung of the ladder, and then the n plus one rung, and now you've got your inductive proof.
And then what's deduction?
Well, deduction is totally different. It's I have these assumptions, and I'm going to use logic on those assumptions to come up with
With one
what falls out. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So are we falling away from attempt, or does anybody else want to?
Well, one thing with evaluation and reevaluation is that what we in MC
Oh, I got it.
is she needs to be reevaluated.
Okay.
She has been evaluated one
That's
way
True.
and needs to be reevaluated. So I know that that's sort of put on her from outside.
Okay.
And then it's possible that inaction would be, I'm going to do nothing, I'm going to play this mahjong game with you,
Mhm.
and then I'm going to let you make your move because I'm going to become inactive.
Okay.
And then it works in her favor.
So you're saying
By
inaction
stepping
is her
out.
problem, or like her source
Well,
of
it's,
drive?
it makes it sound like she's a. Well, her maybe no. I mean, she doesn't actively try to change herself when she's there, so she would be motivated to try to be true to herself, which would be inaction the whole way.
But does she specifically take no action to solve all her problems?
No,
No.
no, and nor does she really, I think, really sort of protect herself.
Right.
very
To
much.
solve her personal problems.
Right.
Right. I mean, she
That's where we're
doesn't.
at.
She doesn't sort of go like, "Hey, you guys aren't going to take away my professorship," which would be like protection. It's sort of the kind of only thing we know about her.
Okay.
Right, so those two fall away.
So then that probably rules out attempt.
Mhm.
So then we like work. What about in the argument in the overall story between permission and deficiency? Under permission, you have certainty, potentiality, acceptance, and non-acceptance or rejection. In deficiency, you have evaluation, reevaluation, and
Probability and
probability.
possibility.
Okay, probability and possibility. So do any of those before feel like the source of
There's the
conflict?
judgment.
Seems like non-acceptance, right?
for the overall story, everybody's not accepting
Exactly.
Oh, so that quad looks like certainty. I should do it.
Certainty, potentiality.
Well, yeah,
Well, that's the illustration of the
For work, you're saying?
what's certainty and
We're in the
potentiality?
No, not
permission
acceptance.
under
No, well, of what?
psychology.
Of prejudice.
Right.
Oh, permission, yeah.
Well, the certainty and potentiality, you really see play in the whole social media thing when it's like, okay, is you know, who is this girl? Are they definitely together? Are they definitely an item? Are that, you know, or is it still just like, you know, a potential thing? You know,
Right.
what is, you know,
So you were saying what would the problem be?
For the overall story?
Yeah.
Would be, the problem or the issue? We're
The
saying
problem,
under
because
permission,
we're down at the
problem
very bottom, yeah.
would be non-acceptance, is it?
Right,
Yeah.
rejection is big.
Rejection, sorry.
Yeah, so rejection, which would mean the solution is,
Acceptance.
okay, does that sound like the,
Why'd you write rejection? Oh, you
because
just.
it's better than non-acceptance, and I'm not Dramatica, so. I don't like
I don't
the
know.
opposites of stuff.
Oh.
You want me to put non-acceptance?
Well, you just because like, I mean.
What version is that?
Well,
It's in a
I'll tell you why, because
Version J.
a counter offer is still a non-acceptance.
No, okay.
So that's
Don't
a
get in this
conditional
argument.
I won't, but I'm just saying you probably don't want to monkey with that
So you
word.
like non-acceptance better?
Uh-huh.
Right, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay, so non-acceptance, you see is the problem, right? Which would make,
Which would then put her in induction, right? Which is like what you guys were saying before about how it's.
so like I said, the steadfast character shares the same focus and direction as the overall story, so that means certainty and potentiality, which is under work, which you've already identified as most likely her.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, when things start connecting, then it's like, oh, I did have it. So, does everybody, and then
Yes.
you look at the
So
change
is this
character.
one under work just because I'm like
Yeah.
Yeah.
trying to follow everything?
Well, yeah, it's
Okay.
better if you can see that.
So this is what I have.
So Eleanor has these two elements, right? The non-acceptance and the acceptance. And then Rachel has the certainty and potentiality, where she's dealing with everybody's certainties and she's trying to show her potential.
But also induction is like, I'm gonna prove that I fit in here,
Okay.
right? Which she is not actively pursuing as a thing,
Mm-hmm.
but is certainly what motivates her, because every time she's pushed away, that's when she gets,
Yeah, I would say
That's what
anytime
she-
anybody infers that she's not good enough, that's when she gets motivated to be like, I'm gonna do something.
okay. I
Wait,
think
So
it's
she
the
not
same
being
percentage
good
of
enough
doing
is
it.
what you see as her personal problem.
Well,
Yeah, so once you connect all this stuff together, then her problem or her source of drive is induction. So that, in a
And
steadfast,
what do you
she
know as a
wants to
problem
remain
there?
herself, right?
That's separate from her personal problem.
the non-acceptance from everybody in the family.
No one accepts them.
How is that,
Her personal problem.
Why is
she
that
wants to
different?
stay-
why is that manifested differently? What are the incidences where that's manifested differently? One is the same as the other
What are you talking
in this
about?
story.
They're
If you're
both,
saying she's not good enough, that's the same as saying we're not accepting her.
he's saying they've merged, the OS problem and her personal problem are almost,
And they're supposed to be
the same
separate.
right now.
It's
So
a
what's at the
personal
center
problem.
of the story?
Oh, well, her personal problem has to do with her mom, right?
In between all the 4 through lines, there's an inequity, right? A
Right.
single inequity. So from one point of view, that single inequity is read as non-acceptance. So everybody, I'm looking at them and seeing this inequity, I'm seeing the source of conflict is coming from non-acceptance. If I step into the shoes of Rachel, now I'm seeing the problem as induction, and that motivates me to take action.
So everybody is supposed to be seeing this story as a non-acceptance problem.
The overall story, if you step back
Yeah, I
and
was
you look
trying
at
to
the conflict
scroll
that
down.
everybody's going
You
through,
just
Yeah.
remember, like,
it's 100% non-acceptance.
Huh.
That's the prejudice stuff.
Yeah, no, I only
That's
see
what
that
it's
with Rachel.
for.
I don't see Eleanor having a problem with Alma about non-acceptance. I don't see,
But she was not accepted, that's a whole part of their backstory, is that they,
It's
and then at the table, it's like, I don't accept you've made dumplings well, you've lost your touch.
What's
her,
what's the certain?
she doesn't change, right? So
Oh, I would say dealing with all the
But-
certainties,
But
like
more so than that, I
it'll
think it's
never be
actually that,
enough.
that Alma accepts her,
and then
She responds.
and
by,
Eleanor
this is
doesn't
my
accept her,
potential.
so
What if
they
I
are
am-
in conflict with
or
each other.
hey, you know, you can't
That I
marry this
think is actually
girl.
a better-
Well, she's got a lot of great qualities and that kind of stuff. Working into the potential.
So, the comment about her
The induction
figure,
comment?
the comment about her figure is the certainty, like when he's
Oh, what did he say?
somebody like the boyfriend gets really pissed off when he calls out that like when
Yes,
The cousin says, well, what's she bringing to the table? And he doesn't have an answer, and then the other cousin says, oh, I know.
Small.
Right.
Not a large,
Yeah.
not a large bra.
Yeah, that's another universe.
Right.
That's another indication of a universe problem. She's being judged by her
Oh, by her.
physicality.
okay.
So, the other way is when the person who knows nothing about Dramatica and is asked, oh, what's the story about? And she says, acceptance, 2 hours ago. That's a really good,
Well, yeah.
it's a really good indication of like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what the story is about.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I was trying to stay away from that area because I thought it was too on the nose, but then the more I think about it, the movie's pretty on the nose.
They
So,
took theme and topic and they made it.
What
the same.
template? What is this
You know,
here?
They talk
Oh,
about
wait,
it.
right,
So-
Yeah, I feel like, and I got up a bunch of times during the movie
God.
because it's very light. But I mean,
It fills in
it does what it does.
your character.
But this is where it's your point too, that it's
Under
works at
permission?
the
So
theme
you're
level.
under your
So
Right?
they're not making drama out of the element level, which is why they talk about it all the time.
Okay.
Because
I
it
u-
works.
I usually always start with the screenplay.
Okay.
So we still haven't actually solved it yet.
Oh, what's left?
PS style
PS style.
benchmark.
And that's
Oh, yeah.
and remember because we skipped that.
So you gotta do
Okay.
benchmark now.
so do you have the, so we should be down to like two,
Yeah, here.
if you can undo the PS style.
Well, I actually didn't check it. I picked
The
a
benchmark
benchmark.
be progress for her?
So
No,
So
you,
what
but
are
you should
the-
be able to see unique ability and critical flaws.
they're actually already picked. They're already picked.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the
So
the
the
only
only thing
thing,
we've
just
seen
so
is-
to catch everybody
Yeah.
up that's like listening or watching, the only thing left is the problem solving style, which is whether or not she's linear or holistic, which most people were on the fence and there weren't really good arguments either way. So the only thing left that could kind of indicate what that is are the benchmarks for each through line, which the benchmarks are when you have the concern. You know, we've identified the concerns like the present and conceiving idea. The benchmark is where you look to see like, oh, am I getting closer or am I getting farther away from the concern? The other second place where you can find it is the requirements in the overall story. So, hold on one sec. So you have the overall story, which is a conceiving goal, which if somebody was to describe conceiving, how would you? In this story, what is the
Ryan already described it.
conceiving?
Yeah, they need to be able to conceive of her as a worthwhile spouse.
Okay.
And so and then
Hold on one second. I know
Okay.
you're probably dying to just.
Oh, sorry.
Conceiving of her as a worthwhile spouse. Okay. Now, the characters in a narrative don't just like, oh, goal, talk about that. There's requirements that you hit along the way to get to that goal. And these are specifically tied to the problem solving style. That's why it's an important dynamic, because it helps to determine what the requirements are to get there. So what are the two choices?
Say that again. So
Conceptualizing and being.
Because the problem solving dynamic helps set the requirements, that's why linear and holistic are important. I think that's a really weird sentence I just told you.
no, but you
Does it
keep
make
talking. Well, essentially, you're saying the requirements for linear are different from
Are
requirements for holistic.
Yes,
and
that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
100%.
Can you say that again?
Oh, okay.
So the requirements for a linear problem solver are different from a holistic, because we all know, or linear, that it has to go step by step, right? So those requirements are going to be step by step requirements. Holistic, it's like all the balances, so that's how they're all, that's why they're different.
I think forewarnings might be
Well, let
It's
me
one
do
of
this
these
one
two.
first, and then we can try
You
it.
could hit any of them, right?
So what? Yeah. What are the two choices?
For prerequisites.
Conceptualizing
Or
and being-
requirements?
They are conceptualizing and being.
Okay. So either there has to be a lot of conceptualizing in order to get to this idea, or there has to be a lot of being to get to this idea.
And when she has that moment where she says, what was it, bok, what?
Oh,
And isn't that like one of the key moments for requirements?
which would be which one?
Which is her, well, I don't know, I guess I could argue either way. She's either
That's what I'm
developing,
asking.
she's either developing a plan for how she's gonna take the queen down, or she's gonna go play the role of being the bitch back.
Okay, what about forewarning? Somebody said that was probably
I mean,
Can you-
oh yeah,
Past or
sure.
progress.
past or progress.
More warning.
Forewarnings are the past or progress.
And these are forewarnings that are
No,
leading
well,
to
past.
consequence.
And it starts, so
Yeah, but-
consequence isn't
The private eye.
happens.
The past,
at
and
the
also, and that puts the, was it preconditions, is that preconditions under memory, or is that
Mhm.
prerequisites?
Preconditions memory, yes.
Sorry.
Sorry,
It's
Mike.
very sensitive.
Certainly.
Excuse me?
Preconditions, you said?
You're looking at the
Memories are
prerequisite.
impulsive response.
I think the benchmark, and those elements would be task, understanding, memories, and developing a plan. That feels stronger to me
I think that
than progress, doing.
Well, let it, if you're gonna do opposite, let Sadie go first. Okay, so
I
what-
didn't,
Just, well, as far as the impact character benchmark is concerned, yes, you definitely see impulsive responses, but the benchmark is something that sort of grows in strength or grows in intensity as you get closer to, the conclusion of the through line. And memories, I think, fits that because of the fact that she's just remembering how she was treated more and more until it comes to a head. It's like, well, I'm not going to treat her the way I was treated. Certainly the past comes up as just a logistical element. And understanding in a relationship is a much better benchmark than doing. So I would go with that group.
So for her, is a benchmark is the past? Is she
Well-
constantly looking back at how things were throughout the whole story to see
Well,
her concern of the present?
I wish she was. You would think she would.
I think she doesn't even know her past. It's like none of
yeah,
you
she doesn't know it.
well,
No,
but that's why it comes up. It is part of her
Right,
her
the past comes
situation.
back to haunt her.
I
Yes.
think there's been cycles, but I don't know if that's her bench. A benchmark is something that is in each and every signpost, and I don't know. If
Yeah, but it grows in intensity.
No,
But
but
for her,
the zero intensity is not intensity. Like there's no evidence of any past in.
Well, she defends her mother,
two.
right? She's forced to defend where her mother came from.
When?
only at the climax, right? And
I mean,
I guess, yeah, only
But-
the
No,
but
she
last.
explains to
No.
to the mom in the kitchen early about her mom and the decision her mom made.
Self-made woman. Oh, she must be very proud of you.
Yeah.
okay.
I think the benchmark's progress. She's clearly making progress toward becoming like a member of the family.
To me, that seems like closer. Like,
Progress.
oh, I'm making progress here, so I don't have to worry so much about my present.
Can I give you my argument for why forewarnings of the past make sense, though? Is that
Sure.
the forewarnings I think of as being the antagonist getting their goal, and I feel like the antagonist in this is also the mom,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and the way that she is going to get her goal is by pulling out her past. But the PI document, the dossier, is her past.
But it's
Yeah,
not
that's
really,
like
but it's not
one
really enough.
instance.
It is. There's a bunch of things where she's progressing more and more toward getting her kicked out of the family.
And if you were to
Right.
think more objectively, just everybody in the story,
Mm-hmm.
do instances of the past come up that make people worry about, oh shoot, or this is all gonna come crumbling down? Or is it that the world's changing and we can't change the family dynamic and
Well, in the
The
whole story, we
evolutionary
see lots of examples of the past coming up. Astrid's past history of hiding stuff starts causing conflict when it's brought to her attention that, yeah, I know what you're doing. at the bachelor party, you have one of the cousins, Eddie, saying, I had to marry so-and-so because she brought this to the family. What do you think that this is a fairy tale? What's Rachel bringing to the family? That's his past. That's bringing in the conflict.
It also triggers for the impact character, if you do pass, then it's for the mom memory. And in the last scene, at the Mahjong game, she's like, well, in 20 years, you can remember how the decision, I forget how it went. It was a memory thing. You will remember that I was the one who kept him in the family.
Yeah, but that doesn't have anything to do with the influence character benchmark.
No,
Isn't that exactly
I
what
think that's
causes her to change?
Isn't she measuring how well she's doing by that?
No,
No.
the influence character benchmark is what the author uses to indicate whether or not the pressure from the influence character is getting stronger or lesser. If there's a greater influence or lesser influence.
I just don't
So
see that many
if anything,
impulsive
it's
responses.
impulsive. Well, because she like gives into doing the whole investigation, and she's short with her, and she's like, "You're not an acceptable person to the face." Like those are
No, but
those are all impulsive responses, right?
But I think Jim's point is that when she delivers the dossier, so Rachel Chu is a pretty cool character, right?
Yeah.
When she sees the fish in her bed, she's
Yeah.
able to control herself. She's able to go, no one is going to see me. And then in the wedding, the dossier comes out and she runs through and everybody sees her because she can't control her sprint, right? She's like, I need to get out of here.
Yes.
So that shows the influence
Yeah.
going up of the impact character.
I agree.
Yeah.
But that's her impulsive response. There's both. Well, it's both, right? It's both characters having escalated impulsive responses, right? Both subjective characters.
Well, the mom is totally, like, Eleanor is totally calm about it, right?
Well, she may appear calm, but she's not doing. she's
Alright, fair
not. She's not. You know, she's not playing at the level that she was playing at that got her in the position she's in, right?
Mhm. Mhm. And then,
She's
yeah.
clearly beta. At that point. She's no longer alpha female.
I would say the requirements along the way are how you have to act and the roles you have to play in order to get to a place where you can finally conceive of her as a worthwhile spouse, as
Mhm.
opposed to figuring out how everything goes together and scheming against people and manipulating. I don't see that as being steps that are taken along the way to get to that conceiving.
So who's the protagonist with the goal?
The dude, the Nick, he wants to get married, right?
So he's trying to conceive of her as an acceptable spouse?
He's trying to get everyone to conceive of her as an acceptable spouse. I mean, he's
I don't know
like,
if
he
this
wouldn't even
has
have
to
the
be
ending if he
qualified
wasn't
like that.
pursuing her. Like, I mean, he has to have a conversation with the mother to get the ring, to bring the ring to go and.
Yeah, I think he would be the closest.
I think Nick is the protagonist, I just don't know that that's phrasing the goal that way is his goal.
Okay, so.
Well, he wants people to start conceiving of her as a worthwhile spouse, right? I mean, that's what we have written on the board.
And he wants
Well,
her to be
and
accepted
two
in
at
the
the
family,
end, the
right?
whole
He wouldn't bring her to
airplane-
the wedding if he didn't want her to be accepted.
The whole airplane 2 thing, he had a huge big idea of how he was supposed to ask her and had this huge thing, it's right when the sun's gonna set, it's gonna be this huge deal. And then he finally gets the idea that all that stuff doesn't really matter, and just to accept the moment. And that's when he's just like, my idea for that doesn't matter anymore. Doesn't matter how
Yeah,
big
I
it
let
is.
go of my. Well, that's letting go of a concept, right? Or no?
What roles is she being? What roles or what being are you seeing? Like generally, I get what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't see Rachel as playing a role leading to this finale. I see her as actively cornering the mom, and sort of suddenly it's like, oh, you're a much fiercer fighter than I thought you were.
But everybody's just using the last scene.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing. But she's not playing a role. I don't see her playing a role at all, which is what the problem is.
I think it goes back to the
As far as
back to the scene where
benchmark.
she's, I can't remember
There's
what the
no
line is with the
benchmark.
bitch or whatever she's doing. That's where it really isn't a plan for her so much as it is, I'm now going to take on the role of alpha female.
Yeah.
You know,
She
but
brushes
but
past
instead
the
of
other.
alpha based on this family dynamic, I'm alpha because I'm gonna put family first, even if I have to give up the guy, even if I have to, I'm gonna show her, right?
I was sort of half thinking and half listening. So
Sorry.
she's a pretty cool character, and what she does in the end is she goes, "I'm gonna play the tiger
I'm
here,
a bitch now.
and I'm gonna show you that I
Yep.
can do this, even though that's not what she's really like."
Right.
She wins, but now she can step back
Yeah,
because that
and-
was temporary.
Yeah, exactly. And you can tell when she's on, then there's the end scene, and she's no longer being that person, and she's not being that person toward him even.
You know, another version of that too is actually the dresses. She's much more comfortable in the Gap, right? And other people are like, no. You've got to play the role. Put on this dress. You've got to play the role. Put on this dress. And when she walks down the carpet, and she goes past the lawyer who wants Nick, she again plays the like cool bitch.
Yep.
Even though that's not
Get out of my way.
that's not really
You're in my
her, but
way,
she certainly
you're in my
plays
way.
it there, and that's another good example of that.
And plus, this all supports our original contention that she's linear.
Although the thing is that's so funny is that the thing that she really does in that scene is she just sort of slides in next to the princess and is exactly who she is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which
Wait,
is so
say it again?
funny.
Wait,
She plays the cool cat on the entrance to the wedding, right? And then she confronts the mom and is told like our row is full, and then she just goes and sits
Oh.
next to the princess,
Yeah.
not playing a role.
She slips back into
She
herself.
slips back into her role.
Mhm.
But and remember, playing a role is like a very, that's one version of
Yeah,
being.
I know.
She's just being herself, which is what people pick up on. If you have a fighter there, she's
Yeah.
just being a fighter. That's like,
Yeah, but then
Playing
you're
the
saying
roles
she's
of
not
this
being herself when she's
specific
going on the
form.
red
that's why
carpet.
playing a role is not good. Being is like, there's no justification going on and just being.
Right.
I love this too because I mean we've asked so many. I mean I've asked this question so many times of how do you tell like what's linear or holistic, and how do you check for it? And that's how you check for it. You check the goal against the requirements, right?
Yeah.
Or one of the. Well, you can check all the sub. What do you call the half this? What do you call the top half of the static plot points versus the lower half? Whatever.
Oh,
You're just
I
checking
know.
The
the plot
dynamics.
points together.
It's the dynamics and the static plot.
I always think of it like the visual.
No, they're all static plot points, right?
Top plot.
You're right, there is another term that they use, but
I always think of the goal at the top. The requirements are what get to the goal.
Yeah.
Requirements. Then you have the prerequisites, and the preconditions are what lead to the requirement. Right? Preconditions. You have the dividends, which I don't ever pay attention to, and the costs, which I'm sure are important somehow. And then
We'll show those color the ending, right?
yeah, and then you have forewarnings that lead to the consequence. So that's how I think of it visually. So I don't know if there's separate names for these ones compared to those ones, but that's just a really cool way to think about it. It's a very linear way of thinking about it. let's put
Yeah,
it that
it
way.
is.
What is the pre?
This is prerequisites.
Okay.
These are requirements of requirements.
Bad for you.
Wait, so what do you do? Oh, you're saying the forewarning leads to the consequence?
Yeah.
Well, if you're gonna finish that off, then the consequence doesn't that split off? You'd have an inverse to the diagram you have above.
No, I think that's it.
Well, you have dividends and consequences floating, right?
Yeah.
So, I like your drawing a lot better if you, the consequence
Oh, if I
then
put the dividends
gives you,
and
yeah,
consequence
gives, the
there?
consequence gives you dividends and
But see, my
consequences.
linear mind thinks these happen in the middle.
The
This
dividends
is
is
at
really
the
tied
end
to the
and this
goal
is
more
the-
than anything else. It's just sort of.
See
an
your own
offshoot.
article on Black Swan.
Did I say something like that?
Well, yeah, because you're like, well, why is that like Star Wars, right? In a way, and you know, why is it? What is? I can't remember what. the
That would be a
details
very
right now.
holistic way of thinking about it.
Sorry about that.
No, you're half right. You're 75% right.
The cost in this case would be the conscious.
Okay.
Right? Which is wherever Rachel goes,
Oh.
people are aware of her.
Okay.
Right? That is
Yep.
the cost.
Yeah, you're now a celebrity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's what people, you know, contemplation,
And the dividend.
what
is the
everyone
pres-
thinks about it all the
present,
time.
right?
Bachelor party, bachelor party.
Yeah. Rich. I'm rich. So
I'm
you
rich
can
for
just
the
enjoy
moment.
being in the moment. All right. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Oh, I love it.
So
Well, we have the whole other story for
her signpost, yeah.
Well, wait, so we're going with linear, all right? Was
Sure.
it, I will say this, when I played with the signposts, the best combination from what the choices that were available, the best combination I thought that came up did match up with the linear thing, so.
Oh, sweet.
Okay,
Okay.
so how do you see her first signpost as the past?
Well, she's in there talking to her mom about the dresses, and it's, you know, well, and there's some that, now I'm getting, I can't remember what deleted scenes or not, because there's a whole bunch of deleted scenes with the mom where they're acting poor.
Those don't
Yeah.
count.
Well,
Well, some of
they
them,
don't count.
some of it made it in there though, right? So they're in shopping for the dress. The dress that she picks is the one she ends up wearing that's not really good enough. She wears that red dress after they're like, it looks like they're shopping at a thrift store practically.
So it like sticks to being an American, is that the past?
Well, it's they're poor, right? I mean, they have to be frugal. They're what you would expect to see Chinese Americans do.
She's
is
not
going to-
poor.
What?
She's not poor, she's a
No, she's
professor.
not-
She's a
not-
tenured professor.
But also they'd be
Economics.
reasonably
But she's
poor.
also not rich, right? I mean, like she's.
Well, she's not that rich,
Right.
but she's
But
not
that
poor.
would be a present problem.
Remember, everybody lives in a small apartment in New York unless you're filthy, filthy rich.
I'm not saying they're poor
Yeah.
currently. I'm saying that they
You have a poor mentality.
yeah, and they're talking about the past in the shop. I don't remember what they're talking
Traditions, the color
Yeah.
of the
There
dress,
we go.
good
They're
luck,
stuck
about. Good
in
luck,
there.
exactly.
ancient Chinese
But
secret.
that's not,
Yep.
Things
That's-
like,
that's a
you
good
know,
argument,
But it doesn't cause conflict.
but there's no conflict in the first act.
Well,
It is
there's
just-
no, there's, I mean, this whole movie suffers from that, though, right? I mean, like.
It's very
Yeah.
low level, yeah.
I think it's setting up the potential, like that first signpost.
well, it's not like she says, oh no, we're flying economy. And in a way that's,
Yeah, there
it's,
you go.
it's just a demonstration of where, it's an illustration of where she's coming from.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Okay,
what I'm saying.
because the whole transition is she's stepping into a whole another world. So
Yep.
this is who she was, you know, this is her past, this is her circumstances, and now we're, it creates an issue for what's to come.
It's like the
Yeah.
old clothes that Marty McFly wears when he goes back in time. He's still got his life preserver on, you know?
Maybe it's she knows nothing about his past.
What?
She knows nothing about his past.
That too. And he knows nothing about hers.
Well, when do you see
She doesn't
Act
have
1
that.
into Act 2?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
she
think
doesn't
we
know
have
about her.
trouble finding that, right?
Right, so that, because in the past, if you go as far as the kitchen, then she's talking about her past with her mom and self-made women, and that causes a problem.
I don't know if the signposts are gonna be that informative in this.
It's going to be
It's
hard
too
because
Yeah.
well, the conflict is I think that's the biggest problem with this. If I can complain from it,
I would just
that's
say
the
that-
biggest problem in the story is the lack of conflict for the first. I think we were watching it and all of a sudden it was like an
First
hour and
act.
13 and we're like, oh, that should have been the first act.
It's all set up, the whole first
Yeah.
hour is all set up.
Right, and I think that's why it was hard to find those story drivers when we were way back there, just because that progress
Yeah.
from one act to the next is not as strong as
Yeah,
it
I thought that this movie was, it was more intent on hitting every single rom-com's cliche you could think of, rather than telling a good organic story. That's my opinion.
But I think if you're you know, since there's if you're Asian American and you're watching this, it's funny because like you're seeing these events that you haven't seen play out on
My
a big
Asian-
budget studio
My
film, right?
Asian neighbors hated it. Like,
A lot of people,
sure-
a lot of people
I'm
did hate
sure-
it.
I'm
A lot of
sure.
people
was
did
totally
hate it.
false,
I'm-
totally fake.
Well, yeah, because you're right. A lot of it didn't earn. A lot of it's.
There's a
Were they crazy rich? Did they actually know that
Okay.
style?
So before we devolve
Yeah,
into
they're just
how much we
rich.
hated it, does anybody have any
Crazy
questions
rich.
about the story form, anything with that?
I'm just amazed that the dossier and her past does not seem to show up in either the benchmark or the signpost or anything,
But isn't that because it's an adaptation from a book, and so then they're leaving these pieces out that they should have put in there if they're actually doing a better job writing it from scratch? They'd go, we're gonna hit those beats 4 times instead of, let's just throw this in the end because we need this to wrap it up.
no idea.
That's how I felt, I guess.
That's all.
Yeah, I don't, maybe it's a thing between subject matter, that they're just talking about the past, and where the actual source of conflict is coming at that time. They're different things,
they,
right?
they spend so much time going, hey, these people are rich. Oh, did you remember these people are rich? Oh,
Yeah,
by the way,
yeah.
these people are really
Yeah.
stinking, filthy rich. Instead of doing, that was the time that they used up where they could have been doing what you're talking about.
Yeah, where they could have been earning their story, or, you know, earning their payoff. I mean,
Okay.
For me, it took one scene, I'm like, oh, these are rich people. Got it.
Yeah, and they're crazy rich people. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody.
Wait, can you,
I'll be here for a while. I want to end the recording.
are you sure? Because, I mean, it's only 8:54.
We got 6 minutes.
Very well.
We
aware
don't
of
want
that.
6 minutes of commercials here, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
No,
I bet you could do that whole story for me in 10 minutes.
Probably. Well, I could have done it in 2 seconds because she said the solution right.
But you're talking about the other story for
No,
it.
the other one.
Oh, you want me to do that one?
Yeah, what do you
It'll
want?
take 2 seconds.
It might take 2
Oh,
minutes.
sorry.
Of what?
The sub
Astrid
story.
Michael.
Sure.
I mean, there's only like, what, 4 scenes?
Is there enough to have any kind of a sub-story in there? That
It's all
warrants
you, bro.
discussion?
I fell asleep.
I don't know if there's a,
Well, you've got,
Well,
besides.
is he a do or a beer?
No, what's her point of view that he challenges her on, that she changes on? Like, I don't know, there's no argument being made there, is there?
that's what I'm asking, is there,
No.
I mean, there is a little bit of an arc on her part where
There's
she
definitely an arc, but
she's
there's no argument. And so you can't have a story form without an argument. You just have a tale.
yeah, he's just a
Because
very
it's two sides, they both just have their opinions.
Yeah, it's
And
just,
no-
this happened, I hid
Yeah.
presents, I hid my shopping, I found out he cheated on me. He blames it on her and walks out, which is a
and he
really
was
cool
just,
move. And then she leaves him. So I don't know what more there is to it.
I think it's
Do you
just
agree
that,
with that?
I do, but I mean, I think if we really wanted to, we could put them in each of them in a domain,
Yeah,
but I think that might be about it. You know, like,
okay,
between the two of them, who do you think is the main character? Jim seemed to think it was her.
I think it's her.
I thought it was
Astrid.
him.
Oh,
No,
really?
it's Astrid.
wow.
Yeah. I felt his emotions more,
Mm.
you know?
You did?
Yeah, for sure.
So I feel like,
Feeling less
But see,
than.
it's not.
But I generally feel less than, so I was like, I get you, man. You know?
so I thought it was like a melodrama.
So, but right
No,
there,
but
I bring that up.
she's clearly the main character of her own through line because you see her do things and there is a lot of subtext in her character in that, you know, she goes to buy some jewelry and she says, oh, what's that? And it's like, oh, you know, it's priceless, whatever the dialogue. And then she takes it and she hides it and then she pulls that out later on.
Right, so she
I think
changes
you should
because she's
just-
hiding at the beginning,
I think he's a doer.
and she doesn't hide at the end. She puts them
Is he
on in
good
front
just
of him and
not
walks out.
accepting?
So
Right.
she changes.
And she has her save the cat moment, right? When she goes up to the little child and says, oh, what's the name of your
Exactly.
Doesn't
teddy
she
bear
just
there?
not accepting
Yeah,
herself?
unfortunately,
Or
I
something,
This is
and now
getting
she's
like
accepting
worse and
herself?
worse. Like, I don't
I
see
think it
the.
just plays off the theme.
Yeah, I think it's part of the overall.
So the film was trying to make us relate to her and empathize and like her, right?
I would almost bet that
Even
in the
though she's-
book, that's what got cut out of the book.
Well, that's what I'm.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm bringing it up too, because like I think it's there. They don't. What pieces of it makes them?
It's a pro- the,
Okay, like
no, the
when
problem is
someone
her
moves-
husband is just a very one-dimensional asshole. You know, and that's the problem. That's why it would be hard to find an argument because he was too one-dimensional. There was no, you know, levels. There's no like, you know, argument on his
I've
side.
told you before, if you have abs like that, you don't need dimensions.
Well, and I would say you were joking, but the fact that there's not a strong enough argument is why you project your own stuff onto.
Right,
that's actually
why I brought that up.
But I hate that as a way to argue whether or not it's a story or not. That's a conclusion.
I think it has, but I think it has just the bare bones of something. Like, I do think she changes. I do think she has, like you said, they give her a save the cat moment. But that does not make a story. It just means
No,
that it's
yeah, of
consistent. It's consistent, and you could take it to a story, because you don't see her being and doing, and him being and doing, right?
No, but like, let's look at Star Wars, right? And the sub story that's there, like that's not fleshed out either. But there's clearly a sub story there, right?
Right.
But there's not enough
Well,
element
what's their overall story?
here.
Yeah, what's the two of them have an overall story of what?
Well, it's their,
It's their manipulation again, right? Or is it the opposite? Is it the
it could be the
activity?
Well, the problem is with their overall, it'd be hard to separate their overall story from their
From the
relationship
one-
Right,
Um,
but that's sort of,
That-
that's
it
what I
would be
asked.
blended. And that's part of what happens in that's one thing that happens in, short stories or plot, subplots is that things get
But
blended.
it seems to
It's hard
mirror a lot of this story, except for it's probably just different down at the issue level down.
I mean, and they
That's
give
what
it, like, I think they just gave it enough so that so it felt, I mean, like, I had the same thought of ESU, which is like, oh, that is clearly not just OS characters. Like,
Right.
There's more to them,
Mhm.
but that doesn't make them necessarily have a story. It just means they sort of share beats that belong to an OS and it's consistent, but, and like, he clearly doesn't change, and she clearly changes, like, I don't know if there's more to it though.
Well, and he seems like a Beers.
Although in that one, considering she is a changed character, I have a feeling she's actually the beer character who changes into more of a doer character.
I think so too.
Because what she's in, especially when she's in relationship to him, she's internalizing so much. She has every reason to talk him down and put him in his place, but she does. She just sits there and cries.
Well, she's going to be his secretary. Like, he needs a secretary,
Mhm.
so she's going to be his
Oh, she's
secretary.
gonna change herself.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So,
She's really adapting herself for him,
yeah,
way more than she should.
Right. Okay.
so,
Can we figure out what the third signpost was? Sorry.
oh yeah,
Yeah, you can have the one there.
I had a thought on that, which is, so,
Obtaining? Wait.
For
no.
which two one?
The one that, it's the overall story one. Decision to
So-
bring Rachel, decision to go to the party, blank number 3. 4 decides to go to wedding,
Oh.
yes to proposal.
Oh, she wanted the driver, the middle driver. So this,
Oh,
is this
okay.
a Z formation?
Figure it
Or
out
did
for
we look at
myself.
that?
Right?
Oh, I don't know what
I
is it.
think,
Well, remember when you only had like the two you're missing, the one
Developing a
it's
plan.
developing a
The
plan.
middle one was
Playing
figuring
a
it out for
role,
myself.
changing one's nature, conceiving an idea.
Okay.
So,
yeah, the middle driver,
It was figuring out for myself. I think
Yeah.
he's right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
what was it?
Figure it
Well,
out
figuring
for
it out for
myself.
myself.
We're just trying to check our.
Yeah, so I think the thing that was interesting about that is, he says to the mom, to Eleanor earlier, to his
It
mom,
is
like,
the
I have
same.
to figure this out for myself, right? Then he pulls out the ring and says, I'm gonna do this. And then the groom, where he's the best man, starts deliberating with him. Are you sure you wanna do this? She's not gonna fit in, you know that you can't do it this way. Like, the deliberation starts after the decision,
Okay.
which I think is a pretty cool thing, because
Oh, that's interesting. That doesn't happen very often.
it doesn't, and it doesn't matter because he doesn't, it's not, until he hands her the ring, it's still just a decision, so the deliberation can
Oh,
happen
that's cool
after.
because you could write that, right?
Which is cool, like,
Yeah.
the deliberation happens post-decision. Because the guy's trying to talk him out of it,
Oh, that's cool.
as opposed to people trying to talk themselves into it, which is a rare thing.
So does consideration follow the decision or precede it? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's cool. Consideration.
So just a short sort
Okay,
of thing. The
interesting.
reason why it's harder to get this middle
I was gonna
one
say.
is because it makes what's called a Z pattern in the table. So whenever you go left or right or up or down, there's a huge break, like you'll feel it. So this is that first act turn, this is the same thing as this right here.
This is the answer to your question.
Yeah.
This Z, because they're in a diagonal, there's likely like a lot of deliberations or a lot of decisions that form it, and it's not really clear what the exact defining moment is, whereas there's a huge one right here, which then goes into the last act. And of course, like the beginning one is a huge decision, and the last one is a huge decision.
And the relationship story is also a Z pattern, but you've got the main character what is it? Past, present. That's a hairpin. Main character is a hairpin, and the impact character is a, what do you call it? A U pattern?
Right.
Or C pattern,
Yeah,
what
it's
would-
probably enough just to know that whenever there's this kind of missing area in here, where you're like, oh, I'm not sure, it's generally because you're going in the Z pattern, or you're moving diagonally instead of.
It's a slide instead of a bump.
Or it's more like when you get 4 answers and they all work.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you everybody. Next month is
gift.
The gift with